Welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. This is where you get the latest updates on business, finance, economy, market, as well as investment information. If you couldn't follow us live on television, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, press the notification bell so that you can get notifications. Thank you. Enjoy this video. All right, welcome back to the program. Adetilewa Adebajo is joining me right now. He's the Chief Executive Officer at the CFG Advisory. Mr. Adebajo, good to have you on the program again. It's been a while. Good morning. I think a Happy New Year will be in order.
Definitely. Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year's. I know that. When was the last time we spoke? You
No,
don't
I was on your program. I was on your program three times last year.
Oh,
so
you even
I
know.
always meet you. I do my rounds with you. Don't worry.
Oh, you always watch me. Anyway, we communicate.
Yes.
We communicate though.
Yes.
So welcome to the
So
program.
I always make sure 3 times a year. Thank you very much at the minimum.
Okay. Now let's get started. I know we're starting 2025. This is just 3 weeks into 2025. But what word will you use to categorize 2024, Nigeria's economy in 2024? Let's start from there.
Well, in 2024, we were at the beginning of a reform program. And by 2024, we had entered into an economic reform fatigue quagmire. That is how I put it. So the reforms had gotten very sticky. The process of implementation was not very smooth. The cart was put before the horse. And by the end of 2024, the Naira had gone from 400 to 1,700. Inflation had gone to a record high of about 34%. Some people believe inflation was or is close to 40%. We still had stagflation, and growth was still stunted at about close to 3.5%. So for Nigeria's economy and population size of about 200 million, growth of 3.5% is not really what we require. We're going to require about 8 to 10% growth on a sustainable basis for Nigeria. So now in 2025, hopefully, after 18 months of a reform program, we can begin to move from an economic reform fatigue quagmire onto a path of sustainable growth.
Let me interrogate those words that you've used. Economic reforms fatigue quagmire. Of course, English tells us that fatigue is a state of perhaps extreme tiredness. And is Mr. Tilewa still there? Can I see you? And quagmire, the other word which you used, could be defined perhaps as awkwardness, a hazardous situation. Let me put it that way. So are you saying that 2024, the remnants of that fatigue quagmire is off? Are we not going to see the remnants of that in 2025? And I don't know if we got to that level yet in 2024, or 2024 was a consolidation of those reforms on our lives and livelihoods. I hope you understand what I mean.
Yes, I do.
That perhaps we didn't enter the fatigue period in 2024.
We did enter the fatigue because a lot of people were tired of the whole thing. Inflation, despite the efforts of the central bank to control inflation, you had CRR at 50%, which was quite significant. You saw the rate moves about close to a 1,000% basis points increase in MPR rates, to tame inflation. And in spite of all that, inflation was still surging. And there was a point in time during the year when we still had some sort of respite where the trajectory on inflation was coming down, but eventually when the subsidy prices came up, when the fuel subsidy was finally removed, then we saw another spike in inflation. So we ended up the year with another slight increase in inflation, but I think the trajectory on inflation or the growth of inflation is slowing. So the only concern I have now is that, the mobile operators have asked for a 100% hike in their rates, and they've granted them a 50% rate hike. So we still do not know what the inflationary impact of this will be, because most customers who use this will pass on their cost to their clients. So we still need to study the inflationary impact of a lot of all these issues. So what I'm saying is the fact that everybody got tired of the reforms because it wasn't really delivering the expectations of the results. And of course, at the end of the day, then the economy was now in a quagmire because we were finding it difficult to be able to start to grow and consolidate on the gains of the reforms. And now I think what we're facing now is the fact that despite the fact that there's no subsidy in the 2025 budget or proposed budget, which is something that is positive, but unfortunately, on the other hand, debt service has increased from 8 trillion last year to 16 trillion this year. So all the gains from the subsidy removal, which should have gone into capital expenditure to develop infrastructure that will spur economic growth to about 8 to 10%, all those gains are now going towards debt service. So the 10 to 15 billion dollars we used to use for fuel subsidy is unfortunately now going towards debt service.
Which is a very sorry situation, because we were told
Absolutely.
that, yes, we were told that if we take off the subsidies, the subsidy was the big elephant in the room. In fact, subsidies on both petrol and FX. Subsidies on petrol and FX, that if they take it off, we will have a lot of headroom for infrastructure. But now we're seeing that we're even servicing the debt, not even paying the debt. Debt servicing is different from even the payment, as it were. Now, 3 weeks into the new year, we've seen different developments. First, perhaps the new VAT sharing formula as proposed by the Governors Forum, and as well as agreed by the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms, Tax and Fiscal Reforms. What do you think about that? Because I had a tax consultant, in fact, on the show last week, Friday, the immediate past chairman of Chartered Institute of Taxation in Nigeria, the Abuja district. And he actually did say, Nancy, there's really no innovation around what the governors have done. It's just increasing their allocation. They don't want to industrialize their states. What do you think about that?
Well, the tax reform bill has been controversial, and I'm trying to understand, from my perspective, the net gains, what the advantages will be. My own concern is the fact that they are not broadening the tax net. The worst thing you can do in Nigeria is to be a compliant citizen, which is rather unfortunate. The minute you're a compliant citizen, you follow the rules, you become a target. You see, so that is really my challenge. So all the companies who follow the rules, who file their taxes on time, it's the same pool of people or companies that you are targeting. You are not growing the economy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The purchasing power of people have been eroded by inflation. So if you have this sort of inflationary environment whereby your households that have a purchasing power of close to about $35 billion, the purchasing power has been eroded. We have become a sachet economy. What is happening in Nigeria is now that everything is being cut in corners. Goods are being imported in this country that are of substandard quality. They're faking drinks, they're faking drugs, all because people are trying to cut corners because people can no longer afford what is going on. So when you cut that and you're still talking about tax, if you see what is happening in most economies, people cut taxes to be able to stimulate growth. So if you're trying to tax the same people, then you're going to have a challenge. So like I said, I don't see anything new here. Like you said, except maybe, okay, the VAT is going up. You want to remove the scale. The people at the bottom end of the scale will not pay anything, and the top end will probably pay 2% more. The people at the bottom end, you could never tax them anyway. You were never able to reach them. So most of the taxes you are collecting are pay as you earn, and then the corporate taxes, because most Nigerian companies want to be compliant with their governance. So what you need to do really for me is the fact that, first of all, the 4 tax laws that we have, as far as I see it, it's too much. We need a unified tax code, one law. And the issue of collection, you do not need tax consultants or people who are collection agencies that are going to be giving commissions. You have a federal inland revenue system. People should be encouraged to go online, assess their taxes, and pay it online directly. You do not need any agency arrangements. That's another issue with that. So, and then the third and the most important is that 50% of our economy is in the informal sector. And in order for you to widen the tax nets and even get as much as you need to do, you need to devise a formula, as has been done in other developing economies like in Indonesia and in India and in Thailand and all those sort of countries, even in Korea, to get to your informal sector. Once you widen your tax nets, then you will get more taxes. But in a situation where the economy is in stagflation, you need to be very careful how you do your taxes.
Because the question is that I think we're putting the cart before the horse. The issue would be, how do you get the 50%, of course, your base, in terms of even small businesses, for example, make up, they employ about 98% of the people in the country, provide about 84% of jobs in Nigeria. So how do you even improve the purchasing power of Nigerians? That is it. Before you even widen your tax base, are you going to be taxing nothing out of nothing, as it were? Because their lives have got to be better. Is it the lives and livelihoods that are struggling with the costs of removal of subsidies right now on petrol, on devaluation of the naira? You are the ones that you also tax. I understand the need for government to generate more revenue. Our tax to GDP ratio in Nigeria is one of the lowest in Africa. I agree. But the question is, the fundamentals and the foundations of the economy have got to be very good and favorable to both Nigerians and businesses.
I think I agree with you on that. And like you said, Nigerians are struggling with everything, they're going to, now they've added the increase, the 50% increase in the telecom.
Yes.
It's coming on top of this. So Nigerians at a particular level are now going to be faced with many choices. So you have a 50% increase in telecoms. You now have a sachet economy in terms of you cannot buy things properly.
The sachet economy has been there since. Yes, it just wasn't.
The sachet has been there.
Yeah.
It's expanded now. So that's why you're not getting fake products, because you cannot get any quality products. They are mixing rice and food with all kinds of things. So the issue, I agree with you on that. And I think that you need to provide an enabling environment. And that's why you need to reduce inflation, to be able to have people who can have purchasing power in order for us to be able to expand the economic base.
Okay.
And more or less, I think the bottom line is that, like you said, we need to grow this economy. If we're growing this economy by 8 to 10%, and the corporates are making more money, they're going to pay more taxes. There's a direct correlation. We can't run away from that. But if your corporates are not doing well, they're suffering significant FX losses, you're not going to get as much taxes. So these are the issues that we need to deal with.
Let's talk about inflation a bit, because you've been hampering on it. What will it take to get inflation down to 15%, as predicted by Mr. President at the end of this year? That is his target.
Well,
and I think I also read where you said it's not the president's job to tell us that inflation will get to 15%. I need you to clarify that, because I'm disagreeing with you. And so let's.
No.
Okay.
I'm very uncomfortable with that. The president, the central bank of Nigeria reports to the president. I think we should get that. The Central Bank of Nigeria has a governing board that has a monetary policy committee that is mandated to deal with monetary policy processes here. And in terms of procedure and in terms of the style we have or the process we've adopted, it is important for us to let that process work. Yes, I think we all understand the concerns of the presidency that everybody wants low inflation. But Mr. President and his budget is one of the biggest contributors to inflation. So what Mr. President should do is that he should reduce his government spending and reduce money supply. That is what is causing the inflation in Nigeria.
Government spending
today.
where? Because we also need
Government
capital
spending,
expenditure.
Yeah, capital expenditure, as you know, Nancy, let's answer the question so that we don't lose track. Capital expenditure of government is insignificant. They only met about 40% of their capital expenditure targets last year. So it hasn't impacted the economy positively. What is happening is that money supply has gone up by 63%, okay, year on year, to a record high of 108 trillion naira. Those are the factors that are driving inflation. So what the presidency needs to do is to control its budget spending in a way that it doesn't impact inflation. You understand that 50% CRR is hurting the economy. While I support the policies of the central bank on a short-term basis, because you need to curtail inflation, but at 50% CRR, for every 1 naira that enters in the banking system as private deposits, 50% is ring-fenced by the central bank. So the banks only have 50% to lend. If the bank have 50% to lend, then what happens? You know, they're now going to compete with government treasury bills, and they're probably going to give the money to government, and they're not going to give it to corporates or individuals or small businesses that need that money to grow the economy. So government should focus on creating an enabling environment to grow the economy by 8 to 10%. If we grow the economy by 8 to 10%, and the government reduces its excessive spending, then Mr. President can see 15% inflation. But while he talks to that, the presidency and the central bank have their private briefings because they ultimately report to the presidency. When the president sits with the governing board of the central bank, which includes the governor, then he can articulate to them very clearly what his expectations for the economy is.
Okay.
Then it is up to the central bank, because you see, even in the United States, the Reserve Bank of America has also been given a mandate of employment. The Nigerian Central Bank doesn't have a mandate for employment to ensure that their policies should also
Align.
get employment growth. Exactly. So what we need to do, Nancy, is very simple, because pronouncements are very important, because you need to send the right signals to the financial markets, not only in Nigeria, but also in the rest of the world.
Okay.
Because we have Eurobonds, we have financial instruments in the world that we are trading, and we're also exporting. So we need to put in a system in place whereby we have a coordinated policy approach towards growing our economy.
Okay, Mr. Adebajo, can I come in here? Yeah,
can happen. Yes.
Yes. Can I come in and tell you why I disagree with you? And I wanted you to explain what you meant. If it's the 15% inflation rate you have a problem with, or you have a problem with the president announcing that target, because I know, just like you mentioned,
I have a problem with the president announcing the target.
Okay.
The president should be able to talk to the central bank reports to the president. He needs to have a briefing. If we have a coordinated economic policy approach, these things will be there. But when the president says inflation should be 15%, it will seem to me that maybe we want to work to an answer. And don't forget that the rebasing exercise is taking place by the end of this month.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of controversy over where they're using the metrics. For GDP, they're using a particular year. For inflation, they're using 2024.
24, yes. for GDP
So
2019. Now, Mr.
yeah.
Adebajo, let me come in and tell you why I disagree with you on that, because I wanted you to clear yourself. Just like you mentioned, Olayemi Cardoso and his team reports to the president. That's one. There's the MPC meeting, that is two. Number three, they have a committee called the FSCRCC, the Financial Sector Regulatory Body, coordinating body, made up of all the financial regulators in Nigeria, including the FRS, SEC, and all of that. Now, it is the prerogative of a politician that is elected, for example, in this case, Mr. President, to say, I have a GDP target. Why didn't you disagree with perhaps the president when he said he has a target of $1 trillion economy? I'm just taking that as an example. He can say, I have an inflation target of 10%. And I want, it's part of my manifesto, and that is why I employed like a Cardoso and all of those to work on it. Meanwhile, he can actually also call them, because this is a budget speech, and the budget speech should comprise the parameters of what he wants to achieve in a year. He would have also spoken to perhaps Mele Kyari that gave him that, okay, Oga President, we're doing 1.7 and 1.8. I know by the end of this year we could do a 2.06. And that was why he mentioned a 2.06 million barrels per day there. So why is there a problem with 15% inflation target? Bearing in mind too that I know that the CBN must have gotten information from the NBS that the CPI will be rebased. So perhaps that 15% is also coming from that rebased figure. I'm just assuming. I'm not speaking for Mr. President, but I'm just saying that it's also the prerogative of the president to tell us that I want to see inflation numbers as so this. Trump even did it yesterday to say, guys, I want to see lower energy costs in America. So over to you.
Well, you see, let us not confuse issues. There's a difference between setting your policy agenda, okay? Because the problem in Nigeria is that we're very forgetful, okay? I have a copy of the manifesto that the president ran on. And, you know, the problem in Nigeria is that we do not measure things with what people are saying. We all get carried away and everybody goes in different directions.
Mr. President said he will lower inflation in his manifesto. I read all the manifestos.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. But you have not measured it. You're only talking about it. So tell me, what did the manifesto say and where is it today? That is what you do. You don't come and make broad statements with paintbrushes. Okay? Fine. Everybody understands that. And I've told you it's a process, it's a procedure. The president sets the tone and sets the tone of his economic agenda. But if you tell me you want to lower inflation, you understand what I'm trying to say, and you are spending money and you have increased money supply to 108 trillion naira by 67% year on year as a result of monetary government expenditure.
That means the president himself is working against the inflation target he set.
Exactly. So now you know where I'm coming from. We are analysts and we have to be objective and be professional. So when you make a policy statement, you need to walk the talk. That is what I'm trying to explain to you. You are telling me, I have information. I have given you a report, which I made some documentation. And if you tell me that you want to do something year on year, we must measure it. So I don't have a problem with the president sitting down. We all want inflation at low rates, because with low rates of inflation, we will bring money back to Nigerians, their pockets. We will increase their purchasing power, and we will grow the economy. That is what we all want. But you cannot be driving a car and then trafficate that you are signaling that you want to turn right. When you now get to the junction, you now make left. It doesn't work that way.
You could cause an
When
accident.
you are doing that, you will cause an accident and you will cause distortions. So what I'm just trying to say is that we need to walk the talk. It's not very difficult. You know, we're having a general conversation. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a process by which we do things.
Okay.
If you tell me that you want $1 trillion economy, your economy is now at 199. Your GDP is now at $199 billion. And you want to get it to 1 trillion. Do you know, in mathematics, do you know what rate you have to grow every year to get it to 1 trillion? So that is like you want to double you want to grow 5 times from where you are in how many period of time? There's a process. And like I've told you, these things is not magic. You have to be deliberate. It is that deliberateness that I have not seen, unfortunately. You have a lot of people working very well in silos, but we need that coordination. There is no coordination of economic policy. Somebody will come today and say, no, that's not what, I don't want to look at sound bites. How do you get to $1 trillion economy? It's not by rebasing your economy. If you rebase inflation today, from the numbers I have done, it will reflect a higher cost.
What do you mean by a higher cost?
Yes, inflation, if you go and rebase your inflation, it will get to about 40%. You are in Abuja and I live in Lagos. Most of the people that live in Abuja are commuting from satellite towns. Like they're coming from Suleja and Yanya, and people that live in Lagos, they're coming to work on the island. Maybe they're living in Victoria Island or Lagos Island. They're living maybe in Ikeja or in Ipaja. How much does it cost transport from those places to CMS? Or how much does it cost transport from Suleja to Yanya? Go to the Abuja market. So I'm going to challenge you, Nancy. You go and do your inflation in Abuja with the inflation index. Go and check in the markets the prices of rice and all the staples. Check your transportation cost. Check your fuel cost, how much, and then benchmark those baskets. If you benchmark those baskets, you will see a significant increase in things. My own staff, for instance, transport is something that we keep separate from their salaries. So what I do is that we pay 70% of their transport costs on a monthly basis. We don't go and bring your transport bill at the end of the month. We'll pay 70% rebate for you because you can't keep up. So let us be realistic in what we want to do, because if you rebase, you might rebase, you've devalued your currency from 400 to 1,700. That is really what the problem is, because our GDP, don't forget, is reflected in Naira. Our GDP is not a dollar figure. So it is when we finish calculating our GDP, we now translate it to dollars.
To dollar, and it will fall at that point.
Exactly. That is the problem we're having.
Yes, that's what the devaluation.
So that's my own concern. So the monetary policy meeting that is going to be held in February is going to be interesting, because they're going to be using rebased inflation figures.
So let's see what would also happen, because for me, I would want to imagine what Olayemi Cardoso would tell us in February, if the rebase figure for inflation will come down, and if that would also impact MPR, as it were, because MPR now is at 27.25% or thereabout. And just like you've said, perhaps Olayemi Cardoso will also take the challenge and tell us what the inflation target will be for 2025. Let's see. But they didn't meet it last year. He didn't meet it last year, which I told him.
Yes, he told us his inflation target last year was 24%, right?
Yeah, but they didn't meet it.
So why did he not meet his target? He's already told us why he didn't meet his target. You see, the reason why he can't meet his targets are out of his control. It's the fiscal side of things that threw all those targeting off. So now they want to come back. So what if the MBS now comes and says inflation is 15%? So what are they going to do? They're going to drop the NPR from 27 to like what, 11 overnight? Or how is it going to work?
Let's see what happens, because that rebasing will really impact all the readings.
Nancy, I'm going to take you up on this challenge.
Yes, so
I want you to
do
your inflation index for Abuja.
Yes. I go to the market, so I'm not even shy. I love shopping. I love going to the market myself to see, because I can't be doing an economic show, a business show, and I don't know. You will see me in the market. This a basket of tomatoes is also, the last time I bought a basket of tomatoes, it was sold for me at 5K. And I bought it, I think, about 3, 4, 5 months ago for 11,000 naira. So I understand that the harvest season is impacting that. So I will take your challenge, hook, line, and sinker. I don't fear, but I understand what you're trying to say, in the sense that even what we're currently having right now in terms of prices are perhaps even more than what the MBS is calculating. as it were, because the cost is high.
I know for sure it is, but I'm not
Yes.
an official.
Yes, yes, yes. I understand that. Now, the next question will be, how do we get the economy back on track this year?
Fantastic.
Because Nigerians are extremely tired. Like I mentioned, fatigue is extremely tired. You're exhausted, actually. For us as a people, we are really exhausted, you know. President Tinubu will almost be how many months now? 2 years. I don't even know how many years now. You know, over 18 months is been there as president. Okay, come May, it will be 2 years this year.
Yes.
Before you know it now, they've entered another political cycle. Governance will be gone. You know, so what will Nigeria's economy, what will it take us to be back on track this year?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's also important for you to look at my report, and I think
yes, I've
maybe
read
expand on it
yes.
because it's very important. Because one of the things, you know, we haven't spoken too much about some details there, but one of the things that I have stated is that I came out with an opinion this year. It's going to be 2 years next month since the president was elected. It's going to be 2 years since he was elected as president next month. So I think we need to take a perspective from that point of view. And like I understand what has been accomplished. Yes, the reforms have been sorted out. We've removed the subsidy on fuel, and we've liberalized the exchange rates. You know, so what else do we need to do? Is that not what they said was a silver bullet? So now, what I'm saying is that I believe that Nigeria's economic potential is being underutilized. In Nigeria, we have an output gap. Productivity in Nigeria is causing this output gap. We are not producing, or we're not delivering to the potential of this economy. And the reason is because there are some structural reforms that need to be done with the center for us to move forward. The government budget this year is $30 billion. Nigeria's GDP is $200 billion. So you can see that what is government constrained to the percentage of the budget in Nigeria. Household expenditure in Nigeria is also $30 billion. So the households in Nigeria have similar expenditure capacity to the government. So the rest of the GDP is being contributed by economic activity from telecoms, agriculture, financial services, construction, mining, and all the other sorts of the economy, including the informal sector. So the question is that government should be able to, and then government has taken 50% of the deposits away from the system to control inflation. This should be temporary. So my own solution is very simple. Government needs to get its fiscal expenditure and its debt profile in check, because it's unsustainable as we speak today. Because the budget for defense, the budget for infrastructure, health, education is 14 trillion. And debt service on its own is 16.3 trillion. So government needs to sell down assets, raise money, get its debt profile in check, and get the economy in track.
Okay. I think we will leave it at that, Mr. Adebajo. Thank you for your insights today. Let's speak soon. Let's see what happens. Let's see how the major economic players, what they would do, at least starting from next month with the MPC. It's been nice speaking with you. I've been speaking with Adetilewa Adebajo, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the CFG Advisory, and we've been chatting about the Nigerian economy. Thank you all for joining us today. Please join me again tomorrow on another edition of Moneyline with Nancy. Be the best you can be, and be the change that you want to see. Bye for now. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.